Hi folks, today I'll be showcasing my Shadowverse Evolve Gloryfinder Swordcraft deck. Unfortunately, I have not managed to get my hands on booster sets past Omen of the 10. So I'm missing the 3 that come after that, although they are coming soon. Despite the deck not being updated to the latest standard, I've still decided to share it, because it will take me some time to open the boxes, theorycraft, change up all the decks. When I do though, I will probably post an updated video. But for now, hope you guys enjoy. So, the very first card is of course the Glory card. It's Arthur, Night King. This is a super interesting card to build around. Its fanfare says, if your leader is Sword, reveal the top 10 cards of your deck. Summon any number of 1 or 2 cost followers from among them. Also evolve them. What you want to do is fill your deck with 1 and 2 cost followers, of course, and also they should have strong evolves. If they do, you also get rush on all of them. You flood your board. It's a really powerful turn. There is one problem with building a deck around Arthur, Night King though, is that after you play it, your deck is still full of 1 and 2 drops, and you need space for the heavy hitters at the end. However, there's a lot of cards which synergize with it, mitigate that problem, and so on and so forth. Before we get to those though, let's look at the 1 and 2 drops I've actually included in my deck. So we're going to push Arthur over here to the leader zone, and let's look at the first 1 drop. The first 1 drop is Maid Leader. This is such a good card. On Evolve, you can search any Evo card from the deck and add it to your hand. Every card would run this every class would run this if possible. It's just such a great search. And in non-class locked Gloryfinder, I'm sure everyone does run this card. However, I think Sword as a class deserves it a bit more, let's just say. So what cards do you want to fetch with this? Well, pretty much anything. However, I would say 90% of the time, if I draw this before Arthur, I would go for Leonidas. If I draw this after Arthur, it kind of depends a bit more on the situation. But you really can't go wrong with searching Leonidas. Very nice card there. Let's move on to the next one. The next card we have is Quickblader. Quickblader is a card with the Storm tag printed on it, which will be good for some synergies we'll talk about later on. It's a 1/1/1 Storm with Evo 3 become a 3/3 Storm. Now that Evo cost sucks. However, with Arthur you can get around it. Therefore, it's pretty much a must include. If you spot this in the top 10 when you play Arthur, damn are you happy. If you don't pull it off Arthur though, it's not too bad of a hard play. If you just play it raw and evolve for 3 raw, it's a 4 cost 3 Storm. Not too bad, honestly. Let's move on. Next we have, rather fittingly, Swordsman. Now Swordsman is not an evolution card, however the passive is just too good to pass up. The fanfare states, select an enemy follower and engage it. If you tap, you do the same thing, select an enemy follower and engage it. Now, even though this doesn't have an evolve, you do very much like seeing it off Arthur. The reason being, when an opponent first plays a card, usually it can't act. So it gets reserved until the next turn when they either attack or use the active or something like that. In that sense, reserved followers are protected. However, this allows you to clear their follower with the evos that you're likely to get with Arthur. It can take them off guard. It can get rid of a major threat that relies on being reserved to be effective. It's an excellent tech card. It's also something which you just enjoy having in your hand, right? A 1 play point tech card, catch him off guard. It's very good. Next we have Old Man and Old Woman. This is a 1/1/2 Bane. That's it. Seems quite simple, however, quite annoying. Whenever you have floating play points, you can just pop this down. It's essentially a 1-cost removal card. If any of you have played Hearthstone, think back to the, what was it, poisonous snail, and how obnoxious that was. Now, it's not really the best card to pull off Arthur because it can't rush, can't storm, can't evolve, but it's better than nothing. One thing you'll find is that when you're building a sword-locked deck with Arthur, you have to get a bit creative in what cards you add, as there's just not enough good evolves. Next and final 1-cost card, we have the Servant of Usurpation. Now, this isn't really that good of an effect. It's fanfare, discard the top card of opponent's decks. Sure, you could hit something good like Dimension Shift, Aegis, stuff like that. However, think of it in another way. Instead of discarding the top card, you basically discard the bottom card of their deck. In that situation, sure, it might suck, but they were never going to draw it anyway. So did it really matter? Now, it does gain +1 for each card discarded that way, so it does become a 4/2. However, that stat line is not that impressive in Gloryfinder. It's very easily removed. Again, this is just a card that's there to fill in the numbers. Although I'm sure in the new sets there are much better 1 and 2 drops. So this would probably be one of the first cards I would replace. We're going to go on to the 2 drops now. Let's start off with a neutral. It is Rosa Mechwing Maiden. Such a nice card, such a generically good card. It's a very nice card to play on your first turn as well, because it's 2-cost 1 evo. When you evo, you draw 1 card instantly, which is always nice, and it's 2/4 ward, not too shabby. Rosa is the Bellringer Angel of Gloryfinder, and as I've said before, I think everyone likes her just as much. She has become the face of the mode for our group, just because everyone runs her. Next up, we have Geno Machine Artisan. You can treat this card as another draw card because when you evolve it, you search an amulet from your deck and add it to your hand. It also has a passive where if you play an amulet, it gains 1 health, but you're honestly not really going to use it that much, and even if you do get it off, it really won't matter. You just want it to fetch one of the 3 extremely powerful amulets that are run in this deck, which we'll see as we go along. Treat it as another Rosa, right? You evolve, draw a card. It's also a good first turn play. Next, we have one of the main reasons to run Arthur Night King. It's a Gloryfinder exclusive card. It's Magnolia. Magnolia, on Fanfare, it searches your deck for a 2 cost, which is actually very good. Once you play Arthur, your deck is still going to have a lot of 1 and 2 drops in it, just because of how you build it. But you don't want to draw them or play them, because you want all your higher cost cards then. Magnolia thins the deck a little bit to help with that. So you're not going to draw, let's say, a Quick Blader on turn 13. Magnolia, when it evolves, here's the really big effect. Give each other follower on your field +2/+2. This combined with Arthur is absolutely massive. Arthur itself becomes a 4/7, and a lot of your other 2 drops, which you hopefully pulled, become 4/4s, 5/5s, things like that. This is the absolute high roll when you play Arthur. However, you better hope that you roll some other 2s and 1s as well, which is why we run some of the less overpowered 1 and 2 drops. Next we have another Gloryfinder card, another good pull. It's Blitzlancer. 2/3/1 Rush. Evo 1, it becomes a 4/2 Storm. 4/2 Storm, not too shabby. For 2+1 3 cost is 1 less than Quick Blader, with 1 more attack. It's a Gloryfinder card, so they are more overpowered than the normal ones. That's to be expected. Again, if you pull this off Arthur, you're very happy. If you pull Magnolia as well, suddenly you have 6 damage going face. That's a problem. Next we have just a generically good 2-drop. It's the Hedgehog. Very cute, I quite like this card. It's not the most powerful, but it's good, right? On Evo for 2, you deal 2 damage to a follower on the field. And it has a passive where each time a follower is destroyed, it gains +1. Generally, when you play it, it becomes a 4 play point 4/4. But if you pull off Arthur, it's also very good, because then it'll evolve, it has rush, it can trade in. Just a generically good 2-drop. Next we have Oathless Knight. Oathless Knight Fanfare is to summon a Knight token. Originally, I did not have this card in my deck. The reason being, I thought that every time I played Arthur, I would get 4 different 2-drops to summon in. And if you find this, you don't have space for the Knight, right? You summon 4, then the Fanfare doesn't happen, you don't get the Knight. However, after a lot of playtesting and calculation as well, I've come to the conclusion that it's more likely you will pull 3 off of Arthur's Night King's Fanfare rather than 4. 4 out of 10 cards is a very big high roll, unless you want to oversaturate your deck with 1 and 2 drops. You'll only get it maybe 10-15% of the time, whereas getting 3 1 or 2 drops is much more consistent and much more likely. In that case, if you do pull the Oathless Knight, you still have a full board. You pulled 3, Oathless Fanfare summons a 1-cost Knight, your board is full. So after much revision, I found that this is quite a good include. The Evo as 1, Assail, 3 attack, also very good. It can run into stuff where people are trying to preserve it by keeping it reserved. So yeah, I actually quite like this card. I overlooked it in my first pass of the deck, but I really enjoy it now. Next card we have a Shrouded Assassin. This is a 2-cost Bane. When it evolves for 2, it has Assail and Rush because it evolved. So by itself you can think of it as a 4 play point removal. But with Arthur, you get to skip that evolution cost. This is another just good pull. If you do pull it off of Arthur, it can usually run in and trade into something and survive one more turn. So potentially a 2-for-1. Not much else to say about it, except that it's just a good card. Next we have the Gunner-Made Sierra. All the 2-drops past this do not have evolves, because 1, there aren't so many good 2-drops with evolves past this, and 2, we're running out of space in the evolve deck already. Gunner-Made Sierra, fanfare, search your deck for a princess follower. Reveal it, add it to your hand, then shuffle your deck. Now we only run 2 other princess followers in the deck, which are Magnolia and Aurelia. Even so, this is the best 2-drop to add, despite it missing sometimes. Generally, when you play it, you want to grab Aurelia from the deck. It's not too bad of a pull from Arthur because you do draw one at least. The only problem is if you draw Aurelia, if you draw Magnolia, suddenly it's useless. And actually, if you pull this off of Arthur and you don't pull Magnolia, what you can do with the fanfare is search Magnolia into your hand. So therefore you're threatening Magnolia on the next turn if opponents do not clear your board. Overall, it's kind of weak, but it's not weak enough to cut. It's an okay card. When you play it during games, it feels okay. So that's why I've kept it still. Next, we're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel for good sword 2-drops. You need about 15 or 16 of them to make Arthur reasonably consistently pull 3. And once you get to the 15th and 16th, well, you get Navy Lieutenant. Fanfare, select another follower on your field, give it Assail. When you pull cards with Arthur, they'll have evolve, sure, but can they attack into anything? Well, Navy Lieutenant means that they can attack into reserve followers. Is it good? No. The Swordsman is way better. But we need to fill in the slots somehow. And it doesn't take up an evolve slot, so that's why I've added it in here. I'm really looking forward to replacing it when I get my hands on the new cards. The next one is even worse. It's Samurai. This, for all intents and purposes, is just a vanilla 3/2. Now you do get Storm and Bane if you pay 3, so a 5 mana 3 attack Storm. But you're never going to pull that off with Arthur, because you're going to play Arthur as soon as you can for 7. Of course, later in the game, it can be fine, right? But still, it's a quite weak card. Again, I can't wait until we replace it. The next card is a 2-drop, but I don't really consider it a 2-drop. That card being Octrus. Octrus is such a powerful late game card that even if you see it in Arthur's Fanfare, you might not want to summon it. Octrus' skill is, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their deck into the cemetery. Again, if you think of it as the bottom 2 cards of the deck, it's not really that important. However, when you evolve it, select a card in the opponent's cemetery and put it into your EX area. The ability to select a card in an opponent's cemetery, play it for 0. That costs 8, which is why it's a late game card. If there are at least 10 cards in opponent's cemeteries, where in Gloryfinder there's 4, it's always going to be active. Any cards you play cost 2 less, so just a little discount there. Right, you really want to play this for 2 and then use the ability for 8, so it's a turn 10 play. However, if you have no other hits on your Arthur, it's still decent because you skip the evolve 2. That being said, it is an evolve 0 usually because there's always going to be 10 cards in an opponent's discard piles. But you can just evolve it as a 4/4 and you can put something into your EX area, and generally that can be good enough. So that's it for the 1 and 2 drop followers. There's actually 16 of them I've included. I found that 16 is a very nice number. 15 is also okay, but I've had a lot more success with 16 1 and 2 drops. I consistently hit 3 from Arthur, and the calculations I've done seem to support that it's a good number. Maybe I'll go through that at some point. The next 4 cards are also 2 drops, but they're not followers. They are Outrunning the Enroaching Heat, a 2-cost spell which gives a follower Storm. If it's an Umamusume, it gets +1/+1. That's never really going to trigger. This is honestly a bit of a meme card. I don't think it's needed because you have so many threats already. At best you can get maybe a cheeky 6 damage with Storm using this card, but is that going to make a difference? From the games that I've drawn this card and used it, it's been okay, but maybe you just want a better 2-drop follower for Arthur instead. Currently there is nothing better in Omen of the 10, so this is still in. Another reason it's still in my build is I quite like the art. I think it's really cute. I'm not the biggest Umamusume fan, but you know, I gotta say some of the artwork on these cards are really nice. Next we have Usurping Spineblade. This is an excellent 2-cost spell. It's one of the only quick spells we have in our arsenal. In fact, the only quick spell in this deck. It does 3 damage, +2 if opponents have 10 cards in their cemeteries, which again, is always going to be active with 4 players. And that's it. I mean, it's just a great removal spell. The fact that it's quick as well. Sword does need a little bit of surprise, right? It's not expected that they'll have a quick spell, and so you can pull it out. You can really stuff up some people's plays. Very good card. Next we have an Amulet, Arthurian Light. This is just an infinite value card. Tap 1, get a Knight with Storm. Tap 2, engage. Tap 3, draw a card. It's just infinite value. Like, the more you use it, the better it gets. It also has a really nasty combo with Leonidas, which I'm sure people already know about. If you have the Leonidas amulet, every turn you pay 1 to get a 4/4 Storm Knight. Really obnoxious. Really hard to deal with. The engage skill is not that important. Again, you have quite a lot of engage tools in your hand. A sail is also a good one. So we don't really use that much. But the 3-cost draw card, hey, if you're floating 3 play points, why not? Excellent, excellent card. Our final 2-drop. It's the legendary meme itself, Castle in the Sky. If you played digital during the first few years of the game, or months let's say, Castle in the Sky was always a huge meme, but I loved it. I think it was a 20 countdown amulet for Sword. What Castle in the Sky does is fanfare, search your deck for a follow with Storm. So that's already decent, right? It's 2 mana, draw a card. Or 2 play points, I should say, playing too much Hearthstone. Then tap for no cost, give a Storm follower +1. So basically tap, deal 1 extra damage to a leader. That also clears it off the board, so it doesn't take up board space, which is nice. However, if you manage to tap for 10, put this card into the opponent's cemetery. You may put any number of followers with Storm from your hand onto your field. Give them +2/+2. I had a friend who pulled this off in a game, and it was so fucking cool. Excuse my language. He had a whole hand full of Storm. He popped this for 10, and he OTK'd someone from, I think, like 20, high 20s, 30 life. It was amazing, and you're not going to get this off very often, but when you do, damn, is it fun. And personally, I love running meme cards like this. It's not even that much of a meme, to be honest, right? It's a decently good card. We run quite a lot of Storm in the deck, so the draw is nice. The 1 extra attack could be important, and you always have the potential to pop off. Really awesome. Okay, we're moving on to higher cost cards now. 3 cost. The first one is Floral Fencer, the OG. Floral Fencer, if you evolve for 1, summons a 2/2 and a 1/1 token. It's just a generic good board flood. Now, the problem with this deck is board space does become hard to manage. So the problem with this is that sometimes you only have 2 spaces free because, you know, the rest are full of followers or amulets, so you don't get the full effect of the Evo, even though you might want to play it to get it out of your hand. On an empty board, it's quite good. You know, you instantly pose a threat of 7 attack next turn. But yeah, it can be a bit tricky to use. That being said, I still like running it just for the sake of nostalgia. I did play very early into Shadowverse Digital, and well, Floral Fencer was always a staple in every single Sword deck. It's honestly not that good. Maybe when the new booster sets come out, it will be cut. Especially because it takes up an evolve slot, which again are at a premium. And the evolve itself is not that powerful. Still though, I love seeing Floral Fencer, I love getting it out there. And board flood is always what Sword wants. Next we have White Paladin. This is a 3 cost. You can pay 2 to summon 2 1/1 taunts. Very similar to Floral Fencer, to be honest. And you can activate it multiple times, depending on if it survives or not. If you have 5 play points, it's an instant board flood. But you can just play it on 3 as well. It's a decent, just raw 3-drop. Another thing that's important is ward. So Sword does not have any innate healing. Sword is all aggro. The only defense you have are wards, and so having a few more in there just to stall is quite nice. Ward also stops your characters from getting attacked. So Sword wants to attack with all their characters per turn. If you set up some piddly wards, it's harder to get through to the actual characters, and they might be able to attack next turn as well. Just a good card, solid defensive card. Next up, Gem Staff Commander. Again, a perfect turn 1 play. Fanfare, search your deck for a sword follower. That's it. A very simple but overpowered effect. You just search your deck for any sword follower. What else is there to say? It's a perfect card. Very flexible. I think usually you'd want to pull Leonidas, but there are some other things which you might need. What else is there to say? It's just you need to run this card. It's just too good. Next we have a Gloryfinder exclusive card. It's the Giantsbane Swordsman. This again is just a very solid, strong card. It's 3 play points. Fanfare. Select an enemy follower that costs 7 or more. Destroy it. And gain +2/+2. So you're always going to use the Fanfare, so it's always a 3 cost 6/6 destroyer follower. That is super good. It's a big threatening stat stick, and you remove something for just 3? Overpowered. Next we have actually 3 Storm followers. Very good synergy with Castle in the Sky, but more importantly, that's just what Sword is all about. Right, you hit face, and Storm allows you to hit face. Storm is so important that we just run the vanilla 3/3/3 Storm Novice Trooper. Hey, Storm is so valuable that you just run a vanilla 3/3/3. 3 damage to face, no strings attached. Great. Same thing, we run Disciple of Usurpation. Now, this is even better because it has the strike. If there are 10 cards in opponent's cemeteries, which there will always be because there's 4 players, it gains +2. So, this is always a 3 cost 5 attack Storm. That is disgusting. Really, you need to run this card. I also really like that I pulled a, alternate foil of this. Looks really good. Unfortunately, you can't see it that well because my camera is not too good, my lighting's not too good. It's a rather amateur setup, forgive me. In fact, Storm is so good that we even run Princess Juliet. 3 attack Storm, and we don't even care about the passive, about Lord General Romeo. We don't run Lord General Romeo. It's not a good card. But having Storm is such a good effect that we run Princess Juliet just by herself. Next, we have a 3 cost amulet. It's Iron Wrought Fortress, a Gloryfinder card, so of course we include it. At the start of your end phase, you may summon a Shield Guardian token. Every turn, you get a 1/1 ward. That is super powerful. It's super obnoxious as well. You get to protect all your followers every turn. It's great. And to make it even better, it has a quick. Bury this card, give your leader +3. It's the only heal we have in the game, so this is the best defensive card in the deck. Now 3 isn't a lot, but it could make the difference. What's more important is you just keep flooding the board with small taunts, and you know, they gotta deal with it somehow. If they have a big follower and it gets stopped, anything gets stopped by a 1/1 taunt. Next we have some of the one of the few board wipes, that being Cyclone Blade. Board does not have particularly good board wipes, at least not yet. Cyclone Blade seems to be the best of them, but you do need a commander follower on field first. This will deal X damage to each enemy follower, with X being the commander follower's attack. Now, in the games that this is showing up, it hasn't been that impactful, I'll be quite honest. I haven't really had a chance to use this in a very powerful way. I don't know whether because the card itself is not a good include or whether the right situation just hasn't come up. I suspect a combination of both. However, I can't cut it because I can't help but feel that the situations where it is good, it's super good. It's like, I like having the safety of having this in my deck. Maybe one day I'll pull it off, or maybe one day I'll decide, this is never getting played, cut it. So, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence about this card. It just feels correct to include it. We're moving on to 4 drops now. And it's everyone's favorite boy, Albert Levin Saber. Wow, this brings back memories. I used to hate playing against Swordcraft. And Albert was a disgustingly OP card. Maybe not OP, but it was very strong. So Albert is a 4-cost 3-attack storm. Evolved for 3. Now, I think when they transferred Albert to the physical card game, 3 evolve, really? Maybe 2 at max. I guess they were too scared that he was going to be too powerful again. But 3 evolve, you can attack twice and you take no damage from followers. But man, if you evolve Albert, why would you attack followers? You're going face, right? 6 damage face. In the end, it turns out into a 7-cost 6 damage to face. Which is okay, I guess. But I can't help but still feel like it would have been fine as a 6-cost deal 6 damage to face. But hey, what do I know? Anyway, we include it because it's just a good card. It has Storm. You just put every single card with Storm on it in the deck. And this is one of the cards you can use with Castle in the Sky as well. And, you know, how could you not include such an iconic card in a Gloryfinder deck? Next we have Amelia Silver Paladin. This is just a great 4-drop. What else can you say? It deals 4 damage to a follower, or you can summon a 3-drop from your hand. Now both effects are really good for this deck. In particular, the Summoner 3 play point follower. Reason being, sure, you play Arthur, you fish out a lot of 2 and 1 drops. However, you're not going to fish out all of them. You're going to draw some, there's going to be cards still in the deck, And you don't really want to play them because they're not strong plays, you know? Later into the game, you can't match up against a 6, 7, 8 drop with a 1 or 2 drop. However, you can justify it by playing Amelia and then cheating out a 2 drop. Hey, it's just an extra summon. It's just some extra value. All around, just a very solid card. Also, I gotta say, I really like Amelia. In the very first Shadowverse Evolve box I opened, I got an Amelia UR. That's what got me hooked. Damn, they got me. But yeah, it's a beautiful UR. I don't have it on me right now. But that's what got me hooked. And I still remember the voice lines in Shadowverse Digital. It was like Amelia and Gelt, was it? Amelia, something like that. But again, just a very iconic card. Beautiful. Next we have Gloryfinder exclusive Noble Knight. Now the same as Amelia, what this allows you to do is summon 2 followers that cost 2 or less from your hand. So again, those useless 1 and 2 drops, they get cheated out just as bodies. Extremely good. And you replace them as well because the fanfare draws 2. So you draw 2, you have a hand with some useless 1 and 2 drops, and you just chuck them out. It immediately floods the board. When you compare it to Floral Fencer, it's just better, right? Well, assuming you have 2 cards in your hand that fulfill the requirements, but again, this is why Floral Fencer might be a cut, because this does essentially the same thing without using an Evolve slot. Next one, Avant Blader. This is a 4-cost Evolve 1. Search your deck for 2 officer followers, add them to your hand. Essentially just a draw 2, which hey, drawing cards is always good. Now one problem with this is that if you play it before Arthur, you don't actually want to draw the 1 and 2 cost officers, right? Because that makes the odds of this worse. And there's not that many 3+ cost officers in the deck. You have Giant's Bane Swordsman, you have Floral Fencer, which again is another reason I've kept it in. But besides that, there's not too many else. So it's a bit awkward to play before Arthur. However, after Arthur's come out, then it becomes quite a good play, because you filter out all the useless officers. Well, they're not useless, but you know what I mean. So yeah, it's a little bit awkward, but I still think it's good. The problem is, you know, all the good cards are commanders really, so as more cards get released, maybe the deck just won't have enough officers to make this worth running. Final 4-drop card. It's the Apostle of Usurpation. Fanfare, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of the deck into their cemetery. If there are at least 10 cards, which there always is, draw a card. 4-cost, draw a card, that's fine. Evolve 1, deal 4 damage to a follower. Not much to say about this card really, it's just generically good. The fact that it takes up an evolve is not so good. I'm sure at some point you can replace this, but it's good. Right, it's like a 6 out of 10. Yeah, not much else to say about it. It's a good effect, it's fine. And there's not much else that's better at it at the moment. We're going to the 5-drops now. It's Aurelia. Such a classic card. I love Aurelia. So Aurelia is just a really good card just to play on your board. Just slam it down If there's 3 cards on an opponent's field, it becomes a 6/8, which is beefy. And it also has Rush, Assail, Ward. Man, it is like, once you play this, you're just presenting a massive threat and you're protecting itself. It's just such a good play. You don't have to play it on turn 5. You know, it's probably better later into the game, but what else is there to say? It's just a big stat stick with all the keywords. There's a couple of sword cards like that, but that's classic sword, right? Big stat stick, lots of keywords. Next up, Tokai Teo. Fanfare selected enemy follower on the field, deal X damage, which is 2 times the number of followers on your field. So minimum 2, maximum 5. Probably you'll get 4 damage on it, which is still very good. If you get 6, that pretty much kills just about anything. But the main reason we run this card is the Evolve, which is Evolve for 2 to become a 5/5 Storm. Storm is just good, right? You run all the Storm cards you can, that's just how Sword works. You rush someone down. So 5/5 Storm. Having Storm with high health is also reasonably rare. Usually they balance the Storm cards by giving them low defense so that the next turn they get destroyed, but 5/5 is a solid stat stick. One thing I should note is that we do not run any carrots in the Evolve deck, because again the space is so limited. But it doesn't matter, right? Because you're not gonna race this follower. You're always going to evolve into Storm. So yeah, really great card. I really like Tokai Teo, even though I'm not the hugest Uma Musume fan anyway. Moving on. Barbarossa. Again, just a very generically good 5-drop. It has Assail. It costs 2 less to play if you're getting overwhelmed. When it evolves, it has the special effect, put itself in the EX area when it is destroyed. Now, one problem, of course, is that you're only allowed 1 copy of the Evo in the Evolve deck. So you can only get it once, right? You can only summon, evolve, swing in, get discarded once. And then you can play it again, but you just get the Assail. It doesn't have Rush, so you can't evolve it again. That being said though, there is a way to recycle it, but it's not the infinite value that it is in a constructed deck. But it's still good, right? Assail is Sword's only real removal tool, and a 7 attack is massive. So you definitely need to run this. Next card, Gawain of the Round Table. This is really just a good, statted, decent card. It has Rush. Now the problem with this card is that it doesn't really do much, right? Fanfare. Recover 2 play points if you have 2 commander cards. And the first commander card you play each turn costs 1 less. So, I mean, it's a good effect, I guess, but it's more suited to a 1v1 constructed, right? This is a tempo card, right? You play it down and then you get to play maybe 1 or 2, maybe a 3 cost or a 2 cost to cheat it out. But in Gloryfinder, that's not really enough. You start at 3 anyway, so on turn 5 you could play a 5 and a 3, but gosh, people are on the same curve as you, right? You haven't overwhelmed them in turns 1, 2, and 3 with 1, 2, 3 play points, like in standard, so I mean it's fine, but it's not the best. I just have it in here because, well, it's a decent card. It's like, let's give it a 5 out of 10, right? Because it's 5/5/5. What's better is actually Altea Holy Angel. this is just a better Gawain for all intents and purposes. It's a 5/5/5 rush and a sail, so now you can actually get rid of some more annoying cards. And it has fanfare, deal 5 damage to each enemy neutral follower. If you pull that fanfare off, it's really good, you know? So honestly, I don't see any reason to run Gawain over Altair. And so Gawain's probably going to be cut reasonably soon. As for Altair, though, we'll give it a 7, maybe a 6. It's good, but it's not overpowered. It is a Gloryfinder card as well, so it is stronger than most others. It is a direct power creep to Gawain as well. So let's give it a 7. Final 5-drop is going to be Alwaida's Command. Well, I guess you could call this a spell, but it's actually just followers, right? You summon a 3/2 Storm, a 2/2, and a 1/1. It's a board in a box. A very good board in a box, mind you. And it has Storm. Run every single Storm card. What else is there to say? Board in a box is just a really great card. You love to see it. You love to play it. Alright, now we're getting on into the heavy hitters. First up, 6 cost, it's your boy Leonidas. Alright, of course you have to include Leonidas. Evolve 1. Last words, summon the Leonidas' Resolve. This card is a win condition all on its own. And the deck runs lots of board flood cards. Alwaida's Command, hint hint. And it also runs Arthurian Light to get the 1 cost Storm Knight. So if you get this card out and the amulet stays for 2 or 3 turns, you've basically won. It's just so much value. Unfortunately, a lot of people will be carrying Amulet Execution, which is a bit of a shame, but hey, if this survives, it's game winning. Now, when I first was playing this deck and getting used to it, I used to always leave Leonidas until after Arthur. Because again, I thought that, hey, if I have an amulet on the board, what if I pull another 2-drop? I won't have space. But no, I was being stupid. Because Arthur only pulls, and on average 3 1 or 2 costs, Leonidas is the perfect turn 6 play with an evo point. You get the amulet, then turn 7 you play Arthur, you pull 3, and suddenly you have a absolutely massive board. Arthur itself immediately becomes a 5/8 rush. That's why if you ever draw a early search card in your mulligan or the first 5 turns, so it's not 5, so it's 3, 4, 5. First 3 turns, let's say, because you start at 3. Pretty much always want to search Leonidas. Evolve it, destroy it, have the amulet on so you can slam down Arthur. Such a powerful card, such a powerful combo. Next we have Alexander. Alexander is just another rush assail card. It counters some very annoying rune cards that were in the Gloryfinder set. The mech cards, which have aura and just deal 10 damage to a follower and a leader every turn. Very hard to get rid of because it had aura, and you'll never attack with it, right? So it's never engaged. And so you need something like a sail to get rid of it. And I think it has 10 health, the rune mech Gloryfinder card. So this is perfect. Attack into it twice, and it only deals 2 damage, so it becomes a 5/4. And it's one of the few sword board clears, right? So quite important actually. The dichotomy of sword, right, is that you want to be the one flooding the board, playing offensive. However, If the opponent manages to swing the favor into their hands, then they become the board and you're playing defensive. It's very hard to do so, right? Because all your cards are aggro. So having cards like Alexander to bail you out of those situations where you're getting flooded is just great. Next, Tsubaki. Just a good card, right? 6 cost, Fanfare, gain Storm, or destroy a follower. Right? What else is there to say? Destroy a follower or gain Storm. Both options are superb, especially at 6 cost. It just gets better and better the later the game goes, because hey, 6 damage right, 5 damage right out of your hand for only 6 is nothing to be scoffed at. One thing to mention though, when talking about cost, I learned this years ago watching Kripparrian when he would play Arena all the time. And there's a lot of overlap between Arena and Gloryfinder and let's say Commander mode, right? Because you don't get many copies. You don't get multiple copies of the same card. Well, unless you get lucky in Hearthstone Arena. But one thing he said is that you don't want too many 6+ cost cards because then you can only play 1 per turn, right? You have 10 play points. You kind of want to have more 5-drop and lower cards because then you can play 2 cards per turn. In fact, 6-drop is the most awkward value because you can't play a 6 and a 5 and you can't play a 6 and a 6. And it has the power of a 6, not a 7, 8, 9, or 10. So 6 is definitely one of the more awkward values. That being said though, the deck does run a lot of 1 and 2s, which help to fill in the curve and the floating play points. However, my experience playing the deck is you do tend to get clogged up in the hand at times, because there are quite a few high cost cards. Especially before you play Arthur, you might end up having 7 cards in your hand and having to discard 1 or 2. So be careful about that when playing this deck. Anyway, final 6 cost card is Gabrielle. Some people might find this a weird inclusion, but I think it's great. In fact, I consider Gabrielle a 4/3 storm. All you need is another follow on the field, Fanfare, give it 4/3, and go face. And it's a 4/3 itself with ward, right? So basically you have a follower, you give it 4/3, storm 4/3 into face, and then you also protect it. I think it's great, honestly. Maybe I'm a bit biased as well because I did pull the SR here, SL, which is very nice, very beautiful. You can't really see it though. But yeah, I like it a lot. It does give the 1 and 2 drops later on a bit of oomph. We're going into the 7 drops now. Front Guard General. This is a 7 cost ward, last words. Summon 2 steel-clad knights with ward. Just a very solid defensive tool, right? You play it, it's a 6/8 ward. The opponents have to get through that, and then they have to get through 2 2/2 wards. Again, sword has no healing. Its only defense is actually just spamming wards. So this is just great. Another thing as well, if you have Leonidas on the board, the amulet, this is pretty busted. If you have Leonidas and you play this, what is it? It's a 9/12. Big threat. Then if the opponent gets rid of it, they also have to get rid of 2 5/5s. So if you don't get rid of a 9/12, then you're taking 10 to the face with 2 5/5s. So man, it's sticky, it's really hard to get rid of, it combos really well with Leonidas. In a similar vein, we have the Gloryfinder exclusive Sky Fortress. The passive, it costs 7 less to play if there are 10 cards. That's not too relevant, right? You can get it out for 0, but that's not the main use of it. The main use is the last words, where if you evolve, you get 3 followers that cost 3 or less. You put them from the cemetery onto your field. That is same as Front Guard General, very sticky. You get a board in a box, a very intimidating board in a box with the Leonidas amulet. The only downside is that you don't get defense past this, right? This has ward, but the 3 you bring back, even if they have ward, you can't engage them straight away. But this card basically is just ensuring that you have a board for next turn, right? Because let's say you Temis, right? You Temis this away, you still have a board. You need like 2 Temises, or a single target removal and then a Temis. Final 7 drop. Gilgamesh, Storm 6/6. Great. Yeah, that's great. Nothing much else to say. Storm 6/6. Alright, next one. Narita Brian. So this is another sword card, which is a big stat stick with all the keywords. Bane Ward Aura. Just a very strong card, and you don't even need to race it to give it rush, because the tap effect is select an enemy leader or follower, deal it 5 damage. So it has a whopping 8 health, which is very strong. It has aura, so people need to sack their stuff into it instead of target it with spells. It has Bane, which is Bane is alright, it's not that important. But the main thing is you don't even have to attack with this. You can just keep tapping it while it's on the field to deal 5 damage to anything. Of course, if you can attack, you get 1 more with the 6. But this is just a big late game threat that your opponents have to deal with. Next we have Captain Meteor. Fanfare, select an enemy leader and deal it 4 damage. That's just a good effect. The Evo turns it into a 9/9, destroy an enemy follower. When I first looked at this card, I thought, it's a bronze, it's an 8 cost, isn't that good? But the more I play with this, the more I realize, damn, this is actually just a really good card. Right, often in Gloryfinder, you just have one big play, and this is just a big threat, right? Oh, it's not an 8/8, it's not a 9/9, it's an 8/8, my bad. But yeah, 8/8, it deals 4 damage immediately, and it destroys one. What more can you ask for? Final card. If you've stuck with me this long, congratulations. We're almost done. Latham Honorable Knight. Such a fun Gloryfinder card. Such an interesting effect as well. Fanfare. Select up to 5 followers in your cemetery, add them to your hand. For the rest of your game, your hand size is no limit. This is especially good for this sword deck, which draws quite a lot. The Evo lets you turn any number of face-up evolve followers back face down. So you're essentially recycling. You get your 5 most powerful effects again. Sword, one of the problems it has is that if the initial board rush doesn't work out, how do you survive in the late game? Because other decks can outvalue you. This is the best option for you, right? If you manage to get this out, suddenly your end game is just as powerful. Such a awesome value card. You could even consider this as your glory card because of how powerful it is. However, I wouldn't recommend it. Sure, you do want to see this every game, but Arthur is just too good of a card to not use as your glory. Because it filters your deck, it comes out early. Just excellent. Right, last little thing, just a little bonus here. We'll talk about what tokens you need. So 3 knights, I don't think you'll need any more than that. 4 Shield Guardians because you do summon a decent number of them. 2 Steelclad Knights for the big 8-cost ward card. 1 Viking for Alwaida's Command, and of course 1 Leonidas' Resolve. Excellent, so that's the deck profile. I'll put a link to an image of all the cards in the description as well. Other than that, thanks for tuning in.